Okay, most serious runners think they've got a hard work problem. They haven't. They've got a repeat problem. The thing that actually builds marathon fitness isn't one big magic session. It's repeating what looks like the same boring week for months. And almost nobody does it because it never feels like enough. And if you're doing it right, you're always left with feeling, should I be doing more? Should I be doing something that I have not yet experimented with that is gonna make me have that breakthrough? I went from running 3 hours and 25 for the marathon to running 2 hours and 37 minutes for the marathon in just an 11-month gap. And then 2-3 years later, I'm running 2 hours and 21 minutes. It wasn't a magic single session that did that. It was exactly the opposite. Let me show you. So here's the week that builds it. It's not impressive, and that's exactly the point. When you're running easy, it is genuinely easy enough. There's nothing better than the talk test. That will beat the most sophisticated lab test and analysis in the world, because what that works on is your day-to-day differences in feeling internal and also the external conditions. So when you're saying, oh, I'm easy running because I'm below 150 beats, some days that's too hard because of the stress, the lack of sleep, everything that's going on in your life. But if you stick with a talk test, it's gonna look after you day to day on those different feelings. What you're actually doing with a recovery run, an easy run, is freshening up in order to really have the legs to put it in on the days that it really counts, where you're gonna get the most improvement, the most super compensation. Yeah, on those recovery runs and easy runs, you're also building the engine. And I'm simplifying it by saying that. We could go into cell efficiency and cell development, but just think of it like you're building the base of the triangle, and the wider that base is, the more you're gonna be able to tap into at each stage of the triangle. And think of the surface area of that triangle as being your ability, your performance capability in distance running, with the peak being the size of your VO2 max. For most runners, if they just fix that, and for some it's stopping worrying what people are thinking when they post to Strava, 10-minute miles, 11-minute miles, constantly remind yourself that nobody cares. And that is brilliant about the marathon, because when you realize that, nobody cares. It's actually, in running and in life, it's actually incredibly freeing. If there's one thing the marathon will do to you, is teach you humility and get rid of your ego. And again, I'll tell you what I mean. If you then add to that week one faster session, ran at exactly the right intensity for you, so you're not wiped out when you finish. It's not going to the club night doing 8 times 800 meters and you're doing it at 11 and 12 out of 10. It's controlled, it's manageable, it's sustainable, it's repeatable. Then, if you add a long run and it goes at the right stage to specific work based on your goal, and again, ran at an effort that is repeatable, you would have the full week. And when you see it on paper, what's that? It's boring. Hopefully it is boring to look at, but it's not what it looks like on paper. It's your ability to execute each day. And I'll tell you how little differences, little changes to my week helped me go from 4.5 hours for the marathon to 2 hours and 21 for the marathon in 6 years. But first, you're either probably thinking, yeah, but what are those sessions? What is the faster session and what is the longer session? Or, I know that, Lee, but that's week 1. How do I progress from that? Here's where most runners go wrong. If on a Wednesday, you did 6 times a kilometer or 6 times a mile, it doesn't matter. It's all about what intensity you're running at. And then at the weekend, you did 80 minutes, 90 minutes with segments of race effort. And if you're aiming for a sub-3 marathon, if you just built that up to 2 hours with just a little bit more work at race effort, you'd be completely fine. And if every run during the week and the supporting activity was done right, at the right intensity, stressing the body just enough so you get in that adaptation, that would beat 95% of the training plans that I see on a daily basis. And I've got 100 books that will give you a training plan. But exactly like you're seeing from your watch data and Strava, the feedback and the direction and the apps as well are not considering you as an individual and your whole life. And where runners go wrong with this is input equals output. That's what they think, and that's what I thought as well. And it's It's actually what I love about running. You don't need to be a genetic freak. You can just outwork everybody. And that was my initial approach. More equals faster. It just doesn't work that way. And if you can, learn the hard way. It'll take you 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I was a slow learner, so it took me 4 years. And along the way, you'll have flashes of, whoa, it's working. But at the same time, a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration, and a lot of setbacks. And a lot of runners feel the same as that. That's 6 times a kilometer, and let's say 4 times 10 minutes. After 3, 6 months of work, oh, guess what? I'm doing 25 times a kilometer midweek, and I'm doing 17 times 10 minutes at the weekend, and I feel flat. I don't think it's working. If running was input versus output 1-for-1, I would love it, because I could have just outworked everybody and been world champion in many different distances. But the fundamentals of training are to stress the body in exactly the right way and to the right extent, so that when you recover, and that takes some rest, some recovery, some easy days, plus the right nutrition, the right calories and carbohydrates, you'll get that adaptation that you really deserve from the session if you've hit the session right and you've given your body optimal recovery in order to get the adaptation. But what I see, I did exactly the same as a kid. Tuesday as fast as I can go. Thursday as fast as I can go. Saturday, race as fast as I can go. When it comes to Sunday, long, slow distance. And as a kid, you're gonna move forward anyway. But I see adults who are running 25 miles, 40K a week and overtraining because they're running too hard too frequently. And more importantly, it's not at the right intensity for them. And here's a stat that I love. When statisticians looked at the Strava data from London Marathon, they saw that in the build-up, runners were averaging about 30 kilometers a week. 18 miles a week to run 26 miles. And that can work easily, but the problem is that those 30 kilometer weeks, those 18-mile weeks, the average is brought down because they're running in a way that it's not repeatable. And so what they could do at 3:30 for the marathon, if you're on 30K a week and you said, okay, I'm gonna try and run the fastest marathon I possibly can, and I'm not able to go more than 30K a week, but they did exactly the right things in each one of those weeks in the build-up, they would comfortably be able to run 10% quicker. It's about using your time. You're already putting in the energy, the effort, and for most people, the volume is enough. It's just that they're wasting a lot of that time on runs and training sessions that are not the right sessions for them based on where they're at the moment and where they want to go. And that journey for me was years and figuring it out, making mistakes. When I look at it now, my training was all over the place, but it's the same for so many runners that I start coaching and we look at their training so far. So I totally get it. I would wake up, feel great. So, okay, that interval session today that was meant to be this, I'm gonna run faster, because the faster I can run, then the faster I can run in a race, right? And I'm gonna do more of it, because the more I run, and the more I run faster, the faster I'm gonna be in that race, right? And I was also like picking out of a jar, like a raffle, the training session for the day, so there was no progression week to week, which is fine, because the main thing that was missing, that I wasn't doing exactly the right work that I needed to do. But the beautiful thing about marathon running, training, the pursuit of getting better is, again, what I said earlier, the marathon will humble you. So after being at halfway and thinking, I'm dead, I don't know how I'm gonna get to the finish, what I actually had was another 13 miles to say to myself in 1,000 different ways, I'm not doing this again. I'm not investing all my time, money, energy, traveling to a race in order to not get the best out of myself. I'm not interested in a round number. Sub 3 will come. It'll just be a byproduct of me getting quicker. But what I want is to get this right. So I started working with the right people. I learned exactly the work that I needed to do as an individual runner, not what's great for everybody else, but what's perfect for me and what that feels like week to week on the build up to a marathon. And what that became was that 11 months later, I ran 1:19 for the first half and then negative split by 1 minute for the second half. And when I finished, I remember feeling, oh, wow, it's happened. But a few minutes later, I was like, oh, maybe I could have gone faster in the first half. So you're constantly learning that those months had gone perfectly, or to the extent that marathon training can go perfectly, they'd gone well. And finally, I'd executed a marathon based on what the training suggested, not what I was hoping to do. And there was nothing exotic. There was nothing special about those training plans. The magic was I knew what effort I could put in for each one of those sessions and all the supporting work. So always be thinking to yourself, is what I'm doing right now, is it repeatable? Is it repeatable for the next 13 weeks before my race? If you're feeling generally fatigued overall, the chances are that on a daily basis, no matter what the session is, could be a recovery run, an easy run, a long run, that either you're pushing too hard, you're not looking after your recovery well enough, it's not got your respect yet, and it will soon enough, or in a lot of cases, it's not gradually built enough, which means you've not given yourself enough runway before that breakthrough performance. And I promise you, there is a lot you can do in just 8 weeks if you go from, well, I've always done it this way and it's brought me from 4:30 to 3:25. That's pretty good, right? So I just keep doing that. What got me that first hour, not gonna take me from 3:25 to 2:21. You've gotta be protecting those key sessions that are gonna move you forward the most. The result lives in repetition. So always be asking yourself, daily basis, how does this feel? And this is one of the things I see in the comments a lot. Well, you told me to run 5 out of 10. I have no clue what that is. Unless you learn what 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, what it really feels like and the difference between those 4, you're not gonna get the best out of yourself over the distance of a marathon. And one last thing before I go. And I love sports psychology and what separates the greats from the people that we will always remember. And Roger Federer is one of those people, and pushed forward by Novak and Nadal. He won 80% of his games, but he only won 54% of his points. The best in the world lost nearly 50% of the time. He didn't win by being perfect. He won by being slightly better, repeated across thousands of points. Your training is exactly the same. Don't judge yourself on heroic sessions that are not repeatable, but wow, I could run 3:45 a kilometer or 6 minutes a mile for 7K, split into 7 reps. And what about the next session? Well, I couldn't complete that because I was still fatigued from the other. What you need is an ordinary week that serves you, that pulls exactly the levers that you need to pull to move forward the most. You need an ordinary week that's repeatable enough over many months and years that makes you extraordinary. So if you take one thing from this, instead of furiously searching online, what's the next magic bullet? What's the Norwegian double threshold? Or the Norwegian 4x4? Or the Norwegian single threshold? Which is just training. Instead of looking for those magic bullets, find the work that works exactly for you and repeat it. That is the whole game. And if you want help finding exactly the right work, structuring it in the week based on everything you've got going on in your life, and then the progressions that are going to serve you based on where you're at the moment and where you're trying to get, and you'll find that that's usually a conservative goal because you're basing it on the training and how hard that feels at the moment, then get in touch by booking a call in the link in the description.